Our guest presenter today is Jennifer Goddard, co-founder of MindWorks International and is also director of the Busan Centre in Australia and New Zealand. She's an expert in the area of advanced learning and works with a wide variety of organisations around the world. So Jennifer, thanks for joining us today. The weather here in Toowoomba is just gorgeous. It's a lovely blue sunny sky and it's about 28 degrees. What's the weather like in Melbourne today?
Well, in Melbourne it's going to be 30 degrees today, but I do miss the Queensland weather after being back in Melbourne for just 18 months now. So I love the variability of the weather here, but I do miss the Queensland sun.
Very good. Well, Jen, we can hear you clearly and we can see your slides, so over to you.
Great. Thanks, John. Thanks. And welcome everybody onto this session of Mind Maps. And I'm going to take you through a bit of a journey and show you lots of different examples of mind maps and how they can be used to reduce stress and unleash your creativity. And I was introduced to mind maps about 18 years ago when I had real difficulties learning. And Tony Buzan, who invented mind maps, loves the fact that on my first date with my now husband, he gave me the mind map book. And that completely changed my life because I'm not sure about you guys, but I had a pretty poor memory. You know, who sort of feels that as soon as you read something, you forget it, or if you're wanting to plan a project that you forget it, and it just sort of creates lots of stress. And I was studying, and it was really quite difficult for me to capture all my information and get the thoughts right in my head. And what I discovered was it was because we're taking notes and making notes that just aren't in tune with our brain. We're using a blue pen, blue line paper, perfectly logical, perfectly acceptable in its time, but it's like trying to use this in today's world. I know many of us will remember using these old type of phones, but can you imagine nowadays if this was just the only technology that we had? I remember my first day at work, that was all I had was a desk, some triplicate paperwork in the Queensland government, and one of these sort of phones. So no, I'm not that old. It was just we had outdated equipment at the time. But what's really interesting is even though we've updated our technology, we're using brand new technologies, we're still stuck in the old way of doing things. Now, if I was to ask you how to describe this keyboard, you would say it's a QWERTY keyboard, because the letters are lined up in a certain way. Now you just sort of wonder, why on earth would people have the keyboards in this sort of format? Well, it's actually designed to slow us down, because when typewriters were first invented, the keys used to jam up, and so the designers laid out the keyboard so that the most common letters were sort of in the middle, and you virtually type left, right, so that the keys don't jam. But, you know, it's a bit ridiculous that in 2015, over 120 years after the typewriter was invented, that we're still using as technology that's designed to slow us down. So we have to think about that. We have to adjust it, particularly for today's world, because things are constantly changing. And to keep up with the change, what we need to do is learn how we learn. And what we need to also do is recalibrate our brain. Think about what we're doing now. Is that still effective for us? And maybe adjust, recalibrate. And that's what I've been really passionate about for the past 18 years, since I realized I was doing, my calibration was way out of whack for what I needed to learn. I was reading an article by Dr. Daniel, I'm not sure if it's Amen, or Amen. Okay, bad joke, but hopefully you're still listening. His article said that you can train your brain to be even better. And I had brain envy. I was envious of everybody else's brain, because I left school at 15 and ended up being a single mum. And I thought everybody else was smarter than me. And it wasn't until I realized I could train my brain to be even better that I started to be even more successful. So I went from nearly failing my subjects at uni, because I went back as a mature age student, and I was going to quit because who do I think I am? I'm working full-time, studying part-time. I was just going to quit. And then Bill showed me mind maps. And so for those of you who haven't sort of seen a mind map, this is a mind map. It happens to be my CV on me. And so I'll take you through the mind map. Generally, what happens with a mind map is you start at 1 o'clock and work clockwise. That's a great way, or rule of thumb, to read somebody else's mind map. It doesn't always have to happen that way, but it is a great way to start. So I'm 40 plus tax, a lot of tax nowadays. I have a lovely daughter, Jasmine, who's now 33 and a lawyer. My passions are my family and my little puppy dog, Missy. I'm also passionate about mental literacy, helping people to learn how to learn, and practicing the guitar. I love traveling as well. Education, I did drop out at 15 and had real troubles learning. It was in my early 20s I realized I was dyslexic, and I ended up halfway through my Bachelor of Business from getting 52% one semester to then getting distinctions and high distinctions in the next semester. I ended up doing my Masters of Entrepreneurship and Innovation with 8 out of 11 high distinctions and 2 top student awards. Nothing changed with my intelligence. I just learned to use my brain. I just learned how my brain works, how my memory works, how to read more strategically. So I teach, well, I don't like to call it speed reading, but I like teaching people to read more strategically. I stand on the shoulders of giants, Tony Buzan and Da Vinci and other people, and that learning how to learn is the key philosophy, and that memory and creativity and thinking and reading is actually easy once you learn the how. Now, you notice on my credits I convene the Australian Memory Championships, that my memory is improving, which is why I organise memory championships, not participate in them. But it shows you that memory is something that you can easily develop. Currently, I'm doing a lot of teaching in the area of creativity, innovation, mind mapping, age-proofing your brain, all those sorts of things. And I've been really blessed to have been able to write a number of books with Tony Buzan on memory or brain training for kids. So that's me, and that's a mind map. And you can just read off the key words, and we try to use one word per line to make it simple and clear and easy to read. I love hand-drawn mind mapping, but I also love the technology because I can easily update this mind map to this version if I wanted to change it for something else. I recently had to bid for an overseas job, so I wanted to, you can see there at about 5 o'clock, I have a branch of the different places I've worked so that they could see that I have an international experience. So you can easily update a mind map as quick as you can type it. Here's an interesting mind map. Mind maps can be used for very light issues or very serious issues. This is my colleague David Hill in New York, and he worked for Con Edison, and his job was to help rebuild downtown Manhattan after September 11. Now, could you imagine if you were part of that project team, all the things that you'd have to think to consider, all the different departments, all the different organizations. So David dumped the thoughts and ideas and information as it came in, and this mind map was sort of a who's who. So you can see this is all the government organizations, the federal, the state. You can see the red apple there for New York City, and then the Ground Zero Task Force, which is convened by Congressman Gerald Nadler. The next branch, you can see the leasing, all the different authorities who lease property in that area. Then you can see the infrastructure groups, and then the victim groups, the police, the fire, and the families. Over here on the left, you can see all the civic organizations, and you can see an arrow often will connect where one organization has a different role in different places. So there's lots of interconnections as well. I'm currently doing a mind map on interoperability of communications in emergency services. The last branch on this one is about the charities. And you can notice that the Red Cross, the image stands out quite significantly rather than just words. So the more images you use, the better your memory will be, and the information will stand out more. So this mind map was used and updated regularly along with a number of other mind maps put up on the big project wall. And it's so significant that it was inducted into the American Museum of Modern History because it was able to capture who's who and who was involved in that massive and major project. So to reduce stress, rather than thousands of pieces of information coming into your head, you can actually just dump it down in a mind map and let the thoughts flow. If you're planning a holiday, you could easily create your own mind map as a list or have this one as a checklist. You can do it a number of ways. This was created by a lovely artist, Alan Burton, and he has a bit more of drawing ability than I do, but drawing doesn't count so much, it's just the thinking. So research has shown that if you do doodle during any sort of event or teleconference, that your memory is much higher than if you are just plain listening. So hopefully you're taking notes and doodling as you go. If this mind map, if you're looking at the type of holidays, say if you're sitting down with your family, let's explore some of the different options. You can go through the different options. You might sort of say, okay, what sort of equipment will we need? It might be dependent on the type of holiday that you have. And the clothing, just enough clothing as a reminder to say don't pack it too heavy so that you have room for gifts. What do you have to do when you're on holidays? Who do you have to tell? What sort of things do you need to organise? What budget do you have? What different things you need to book? So you could have this mind map and go around and tick the different things. It could be like a to-do list relatively easily, or it could be just a summary to start that discussion. Mind maps also help reduce stress. On the 13th of May, I had an MRI, and they discovered this massive brain tumour in my brain. And they had to have surgery, and the surgery was 17 weeks ago today. So I'm so blessed and so excited to be talking to you today. Now, can you imagine the stress and the concern about what is involved in brain surgery? So knowing me, I did a mind map. This it summarizes about an acoustic neuroma, what are the symptoms, the types of neuroma, the types of treatment, post-surgery, and where to get support. And I initially prepared this for myself, but then I actually shared it with other people who are being diagnosed more and more, or since my diagnosis, to be able to share that with them. So it enabled me to reduce all the stress, and the feedback that I've had is that it was able to reduce stress of others. So that's sort of a bit of an introduction to mind map, and I suppose I got hand it over to John and sort of say, do you have any questions or comments or bad jokes to share?
No, Jen, I don't have any bad jokes to share. Hey, so we've got a few questions coming in, so folks feel free to type them in that little questions box down the bottom there. So the first one is that one of our attendees, James, is saying that he gets good ideas but at inconvenient times. Do you have any suggestions of what he might do with that?
One of the great things is to always have a piece of paper beside your bed or wherever you are to be able to capture those ideas. When I'm walking my dog, I have a audio recording on my phone, and I just quickly do a 30-second or 1-minute recording to be able to capture the ideas. There are some basic memory techniques that you can use. Is that also, if you're walking home, what are the things you've got to do with the shopping? It's a great way of capturing things. So having a piece of paper ready, or just learning about the technology so that you can really just enhance that thinking, because it always happens you get the best ideas when you're in the shower, naked, with shampoo in your eyes, and you've got no way to write those ideas down.
That's good, thank you. Now, a number of folk are thanking you for sharing your health journey with us, and that's really helpful, thank you. And a few people are asking about if you have any favourite mind mapping software. Now, are you going to cover that later?
I can cover that now. I've been involved for about 18 years and seen the software evolve, and most of the software that I've been showing is software called iMindMap. It's M-I-N-D-M-A-P, and if you just go to imindmap.com, you can easily download it for a 7-day free trial. For home student version, it's about $80. For the professional ultimate version, it's about $250 Australian. So it's great software. It it, or you can enhance it with lots of images and icons. So that's my favorite.
Thank you. Now, was that imindmap.com.au at the end?
No, the .com, myaustralian.au site is now being made redundant because they want us all to focus on the .com site. So yeah, I think on the iMindMap pad it might say .com.au. It will redirect you to the .com site. It was actually co-developed by Tony Buzan.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. So there's a few more comments here about saying how much people appreciate you sharing some of your mind mapping ideas with us and how good that is. And by the way, we've got NASA from Iran with us today. We're at 6 a.m. in the morning, so well done, NASA, for getting up early to listen in. That's great. So I think I might just hold over the others and just pass back to you now. Thanks, Jen.
Fantastic. Okay. So we're talking about stress, how to reduce stress. The other one is how to unleash creativity. And mind maps, we like to call them the Swiss Army knife for the brain, because when I'm teaching people to teach mind mapping, one of the fun things I like to do is, what's the most bizarre use for a mind map? And we've had planning murders and do all sorts of really interesting things. So they are really the Swiss Army knife for the brain. So they can be used in all sorts of business areas, education, primary, secondary, tertiary, in the community, in government organisations and volunteer organisations, lots of personal applications, and in creativity and innovation. So they can be used in nearly any aspect of business and life. Oops. Hang on, let me go to the next one. And interesting enough, there's lots of people that use mind maps around the world. I'm sure you would recognise this guy if you look closely. It's Al Gore, and why he needs 3 computer screens on his desk, I'm not quite sure. And this article appeared in Time magazine. You can see all the stuff on his desk, but look at the one thing that's above his head, the one-page roadmap, the one-page mind map. And he uses mind maps to keep him in control of everything that he needs to do. And I'm sure you know of his books and Work in Inconvenient Truth, and his latest book actually includes mind maps throughout each chapter as a summary. I recently was in Queensland for the Australasian Environmental Law and Enforcement and Regulations Network, or the ALERT conference, and I was asked to MC and mind map the conference as a way of summarising everything. So before I went, I did this quick mind map. It'll be hard to see, I know. There was a pre-conference, advance, day 1, day 2, and then post-conference. Then each day I mind mapped. At the end of the day, I gave a summary of what we had covered so that all the delegates could both refresh their memory and take the mind map back to their colleagues and say, this is what we did. Because, after 2 days of being in a conference, you go, what were all the things that we covered? So there were quite a number of plenary sessions from people internationally. Charlotte Davis is one of these environmental activists. Joe Garadu from the Netherlands. We had Julie Nielsen from Queensland talking about the regulatory framework and rewarding performance. Simon Kelly was talking about social media. And then Anne Sheehan at the bottom there at 5 o'clock, she took us through what happened when the Australians took Japan to the International Court of Justice and to try to stop the whaling. There was a workshop for senior executives, and there was a great panel session about using technology for open source intelligence. How do you find who are environmentally, not terrorists, but the word environmental polluters, and illegal work that's going on. There were concurrent sessions, and the core themes were stories from the field, new theories, and about the future regulator. You can see there's quite a number of them there, and all I've done is just captured what was the topic, who it was, and where they were from, just to stimulate the thinking. I could actually take that branch and make that a complete mind map, or make each individual's presentation a mind map. So a mind map can be at the grassroots level, the bush level, the tree level, the helicopter level, or the aeroplane level. So this is sort of, I suppose, at the helicopter level because we're looking over day 2, and there's a similar mind map for day 1. A very, very useful tool to summarize the information. And I was doing this as in between emceeing the conference. We talked a bit about the software. There's computer software, makes it really quite easily if you've got a light topic, if you want to just capture your thinking. This is a summary of my one-day program, all the things I cover in like a one-day or a half-day introduction to mind mapping. Though what I do actually at the start of each course, I get people to follow along with me and I hand draw the mind map. So to get them used to the laws of mind mapping and get them to sort of get a feel for how to mind map. So you can see there it's capturing the key information, and this is live as I was getting people to follow along with me. And then what we do, we get everyone to look at each other's mind maps, and they're all quite different. Even though they've heard the same thing and seen the same thing, the imagery and information is all quite different, just basic handwriting or the color of the pen. So that it shows that anybody could read someone else's mind map once they strip away the individuality and they can just read the architecture of thought. So we talked a bit about stress, and the other option today was talking about creativity. How can you improve your creativity? I know in my Masters of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, we teach a lot of creativity and that you can be creative. Everyone has a different definition of creativity, and what we want to do is to allow you just the thoughts to flow a little bit more. So mind maps are a great tool to enhance your creativity. You can do an image-only mind map. You can do a mind map on you and all your goals and where you're wanting to go. It can help with a paradigm shift. It can help with a communication tool, organizing your thoughts and your speeches. A colleague did a mind map as a eulogy for his father-in-law. So rather than writing a long speech, he just captured in the mind map everything he admired or history of his father-in-law, and was able to deliver that with really deep sense of heart and emotion and flexibility rather than being restricted in a speech. It also saves a lot of time when you're capturing information in a mind map. And a mind map, what it is, it's radiant thinking, starting from a central point and radiating out. So one thought will lead to another, which will lead to another, which leads to another. So even if you just start with a blank page, a mind map will allow you to brain bloom or to radiate those thoughts out. And you can use mind maps in all sorts of areas of your life, which I've sort of mentioned before. Generally, mind maps are used for note-taking, getting stuff into your head, but also note-making, getting it out of your head, which is that presentation, as we met before. So rather than using linear notes, which can imprison your brain, if you use a mind map, it actually enhances that information and allows you to remember it if you're using it for an exam situation or a workshop or like a conference like we've just shown you. So there's some tips on creativity, and knowing that just like tennis, you can easily learn to be more creative, just like you can learn to play tennis. We may not all be like Vanessa Williams, but we can learn the skills. And here are a few other examples of mind maps. You can use a mind map as a summary of a workshop or a presentation. You know, save trees, just give people a one-page mind map. Or this could be in your somewhere close or in your diary, just to remind you of all the things to, focus on and have balance in your life. This is a mind map that I did when I was in New York on the holidays, and we're waiting for our meals, and they give you chalk to draw on. So we did a quick mind map of all the things that we were doing in New York. This mind map is a summary of a book by Megatrends by John Nesbitt, and it looks at the 10 key megatrends in the future. It enables people to summarize the whole book, to be able to present it or to come back to it. And if you're an MBA student or something like that and you have an open book exam, well, what you can do is you can take a summary of the subject or a book and have that as your mind map, have the key points there, and then write in your own words. Mind maps can help you learn a language. So for example, we can learn French. You're seeing the words, the French words and the imagery, so you're starting to think in that language. Mind maps can be used in any language. I have lots of in China that we work, or in Arabic or Greek or any sort of language. You can easily mind map. This is a prince on his vision for his country. You can also use mind maps as templates. And this is one that was used in Mildura South Primary School, just to help the kids do a little bit differently on their spelling, and enables them to try different things, what different words rhyme with it, and build on it that way. So even, you know, grade 5 kids are using mind maps, or even younger kids. So I have to ask the question, I suppose, are you smarter than a 5th grader? Do you use mind maps, or do you train your brain to be even more successful? I'll let you think about that one. Okay, so mind maps can be used for all sorts of things, for maths, for chemistry, any type of technical things. It can also be used in when I was in Queensland for my Rotary group. We do sausage sizzles, and they'd be always forgetting to do things, so I did a quick mind map, gave it to the boys and said, right, every week when we do the sausage sizzle, this is what you need to do. Mind maps can also be a stepping stone. This was a mind map of a very detailed document, and you see the little blue pencil marks. Under each branch, you can capture all the notes, capture all the thinking, do it in a radiant form, and then export it into the way that you're going to publish it. So we went from the mind map to a 30-page document with the table of contents. The key thing with the mind map is thinking about what's your purpose? What am I doing it for? Is it for me? Is it to share? And that will adjust the approach that you take. You always start with your purpose. I like this mind map of John's. This is his PhD thesis, and you can see here that he's got the information there. You'll notice that his is different because it's sort of focusing to the right. Mind maps are usually radiant, and it should be in a sort of circular radiant manner to be able to use more of the page and make it a little bit larger. So this is an example of a mind map that is radiant, but it's not using a lot of imagery, and it does have a lot of words on there. I saw this mind map because it was Simon Sinek's summary of his great TED talk in 2005. So this is my version of Simon's talk about the golden circle, about starting with why. And this is available online if you want to have a look at it. But you can see the enhancement of the imagery, less words, and if you listen to the TED talk, then you can see the key information. So if you want the bare bones to success, try recalibrating your brain, try mind maps, try something new. So on our website, on mindworks.com, you can see the Simon Sinek mind maps there. There's lots of other mind maps. I haven't counted, about 1,000 or something I've put up there. I have some public programs coming up in February, a masterclasses in study skills in Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland and Brisbane. So if you want to find out some information to that once we firm up the details, subscribe to our e-letter and I'll send you that information out. If you want to go onto our website, there is some online programs for free, Introduction to Mind Maps, How to Mind Map a Book using 6 Thinking Hats, and you can download some mind maps there, a summary of 6 Thinking Hats and a few other different fun mind maps. So that's all from me. And any other questions there, John, that you'd like me to answer?
Well, there sure are, Jen. So here we go. So I'll just start with a few comments. That Martin uses mind maps for planning presentations and articles, which is great. Ros comments that she says that she sees that you often have spare branches, and she finds that invaluable and try to always have them, and to invite the mind to keep thinking. And Georgie comments that he really likes the idea of using a mind map instead of speaking notes. Thanks, and they'll use that. And Philip comments that he's seen them used as a palm cue card for presentations, and it seems a really good idea. So those are some comments. Now for some questions for you. First of all, someone's asking that they're they're not really a visual type person. Do you find that that's a hindrance, or can anyone and really of any age use them as well?
Anyone of any age. You've seen some of those mind maps that don't have a lot of imagery there. Some people say, oh, I like my list, and all a mind map is a radiant list rather than a linear list, trapping us in this linearness. And they can be used for people, so-called left-brain people who are very logical, linear, like myself. I'm an ex-Virgo. I like my list. But the mind map is using my whole brain. So it's engaging the right side of my brain. So it actually is a whole brain thinking tool. And you can use the level of imagery that works for you. And it depends on what your time have and what sort of technology you're using, whether it's paper or computers. So that's why they're the Swiss Army knife. They're flexible for everyone. And, anyone as young as 4 years old can start using a mind map.
Great. Thanks, Jen. Scott comments that a politician once claimed that he remembered names by repeating that person's name 5 times if possible during the conversation. So Jennifer, do you have any other suggestions or tricks to help people remember names? Because that's obviously a common problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I often go to conferences and have fun time teaching people how to remember names and faces. So the first thing you want to do is prime your brain. As you're going up to meet someone, keep it in your head, yes, I want to remember the name, rather than going in one ear and out the other. And then remember the 3 L's. You look at the person, you listen for their name, and then you link it to somebody you know or somebody famous or something about them. So for example, if the name is Charlotte, you can imagine a spider crawling over their face. That's really easy. Or there might be someone like a Richard. My brother's name is Richard, so I make that link with that. So you look, listen, and link. They're the 3 top things.
Great. Thanks, Jen. Angelina asks, do you recommend learning the basics of mind mapping manually, so on paper, and then moving to using software, or doesn't it really make any difference? I always start people with the manually, with the paper and the pen, and you can tell someone who's a mind mapper who then uses software rather than a software person who's learnt to mind map. There are some subtleties with learning it with the paper and pen, and there are some pros and cons for both. And if you're wanting it to be more memorable, if you're wanting to study or to review, it's best to mind map it by hand. But if you're wanting it to be able to share it with others or reprint it or evolve with your creativity, the computer software is that invaluable, because if someone spills some water over your paper map, that could be disastrous. So, but in my workshops, I always start with a hand-drawn map, and then we move across to a little bit of software and then about group mind mapping, because you can get 50 or 100 people mind mapping on one topic and creating that conversation. And so it's not so much about the mind map itself, but as they're hand drawing it, it's enabling them to capture their thoughts, collaborating and having a conversation about the topic. Great, thank you. Vol is asking, have you ever seen people do strategic plans being expressed as a mind map?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things that we do all the time. We run a workshop with CEOs called Mapping Your Business Strategy. And we do that with entrepreneurs. And what business planning used to be a really long cycle, take months and months on end. We don't have the time for that nowadays. So if you mind map, you can actually within an hour or less, but generally an hour, map your current business strategy, where you're at, where you're heading to, capture the detail in the notes section and either export that into a Word document if you want to, or you can actually have the mind map there and review it with your team and say, okay guys, this is where we were last time, this is where we're at now. The Director of the Air Force HR in Canberra has a strategic plan and the 6 core theme areas, and he has it over each year, how the theme shifted and changed. And he just said to his team, I just want to be briefed like this nowadays. I just want to have the mind map rather than pages and pages of documents. So mapping your strategic plan is a really valuable tool to save time and keep up with what's happening in real life.
Great, thank you. Now, Jen, could you just move to your final slide, because that way people can see your contact details. But of course, I will send that out to everyone in the follow-up email. People are asking, you know, they're in Western Australia, do you ever get over there to do training and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. You know, I'm constantly traveling. I used to live in Perth and up in Kalbarri. I love getting over there as much as I can. And people contact me and sort of say, you know, can I come over there? And then we sort of try and work out a time that's suitable for all the different people to go there. Before my surgery, I flew to Kuwait twice to teach mind mapping there. So have mind maps will travel. So anywhere, either in-house programs or public programs, or I often do a lot of work one-on-one coaching with people. I've got a guy in Buenos Aires, another lady in Mumbai, and a guy in Canberra, where we just catch up for an hour a week on Skype to go through their how to recalibrate their brain with memory techniques, with speed reading, and mind mapping. So it's a great collaborative way. So this is my passion, is about helping people really understand how their brain works and get their most out of their potential.
Good. Okay, thank you. And we actually have someone asking about when you're, how do you apply mind maps when studying? And I've noticed you actually run a course separately on that, don't you, Jen?
Yes, I've got a 2-day masterclass coming up on studying, because that's how I came across mind mapping. As a mature age student, feeling completely overwhelmed and overloaded with information and having really poor study techniques. So I work with mature age students as well as university students to help them, whether it's planning their notes or passing exams, or, you know, helping them customizing to their needs, because all of our brains are different, but there are some common techniques that we can apply to recalibrate the way that we're doing things. So yeah, so I'm helping a lady at the moment finish her procurement exam. She actually had it yesterday, and she had the most horrendous manual process of stuff, and she was rewriting her notes out and would spend 5 hours every night. And as soon as I showed her some mind maps and some memory techniques, that she could remember the 14 stages of negotiation by using the 4 corners of her lounge room, the whole weight of this study lifted, and she was just so much more positive about going into yesterday's exam. So yes, though anything anybody sort of wants help with, just let me know. I'm really, my purpose now in life, I've got a fresh start in life, is to really help people get the most out of their brain.
Okay, last question, because it covers what a number of people are asking. When you're doing something like, you know, studying for an exam, how much do you try to fit on the one mind map? Do you try to get everything there, or do you maybe have a mind map that breaks it up into the 6 or 7 areas, and then you have a separate mind map for each of those? Well, what do you suggest, Jen?
Yes, well, if you think of the grassroots, the bush, the tree, the helicopter, the airplane level, then what you can have is a mind map of the whole topic, or goes down into detail. Medical students tend to put every single word on their mind map, and it just becomes this jumble of words, and it's not really an effective study tool. So what you can do is just layers. So use the table of contents to create a bigger picture, and then go into detail. I have one guy in Canberra, he's got a 300-page workbook, and he wanted me to help him with it. And I said, okay, great, send me the table of contents and we'll start working on it. He said, there's no table of contents. And I went, okay, well, that's one of the start of the problems. So we did a quick mind map of the table of contents, and then one of the sections we've gone into more detail. So you can use A4 paper, A3 paper, or you can have a mega mind map with A0 or A1 paper. One of my colleagues in Sydney, she has this huge mind map, butcher's paper, on her wall when she's studying, and she's creating it as each week as she's going. So each branch is a week's topic, and she's using that as her review process, so it's there large on her wall, as well as the study purpose. So you can have them in a palm card, very small, A5 size, on a post-it note, or quite large. So you choose the level of detail that works for you.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Jen. We're running out of time. So folks, on behalf of the audience from around the world, thank you so much, Jennifer. You've shared some really helpful, insightful things for people today. And I've had a number of the attendees saying, wow, awesome, best webinar yet. So thank you, Jennifer, for the time and effort you've put into today's webinar.
Great, thank you. And thanks, guys. It was great meeting you virtually, that is. Thanks, John.
That's right. That's okay. Now, folks should be aware that I have created a LinkedIn group, and so that's the way we can continue the conversation, and I'll send you a link to that afterwards. Today's webinar is brought to you by a partnership between the Queensland Government, who I still have the pleasure of working for, and Citrix GoToWebinar, which is powering today's webinar. Of course, I'll be sending you a survey afterwards, so please keep the monkeys happy and give us your feedback. Today's webinar topic was nominated and voted upon by members of our community, and it slowly rose to be the most asked and voted on topic. So if you've got a great idea for our next webinar topic, please visit our user voice site and tell us about it. And again, I'll have a link to those in the email that I'll send hopefully later today. So folks, thanks for coming along and interacting with us today. I always enjoy these webinars. Where we get to discuss different aspects of enabling change and innovation, and especially ones like today where we learn, tools and techniques that we can all use just about anywhere. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll look forward to seeing your comments and ideas over at the LinkedIn site. Wishing you all the best until we meet again. Hooroo for now.